All right, Greg, what should we expect with this offensive coordinator search and these interviews beginning next week?
It's a great question. I mean, look, this is uncharted territory for Bill Belichick and the Patriots. First of all, in accordance to the rooting rule, they have to interview at least 2 minority candidates. These interviews do not have to be in person. Before this announcement happened, Belichick and the rest of the coaches were supposed to be on vacation through the end of next week. Most of the coaches were gone anyways when this announcement came out. I would assume Belichick might do some Zoom interviews with people. We just don't know, Nick. And it's nobody has any inside information. Again, this is now going back to it's all Belichick, and the Krafts are going to be involved, and I'm sure they're going to suggest some candidates for Bill to interview. But it really comes down to, and Bill's not going to tell anybody this, like, what does he want to do with his offensive system? We've talked about it before, but it's important to note. This goes back to his Cleveland days. Something that Bill fundamentally believes is that in the best interest of the team, you cannot be changing playbooks all the time. You have a Patriots offense. Now, they tweaked things this year and did things differently. Does he want to keep going in that direction? Does he look for somebody from the Shanahan tree to do that? Somebody who actually, I don't know, knows the offense and can teach it to people? Or is he going to go back and say, well, that was a disaster. Let's go back to what we did for years. And does that bring in more Patriots tree people? Bill O'Brien, Nick Caley. It's interesting that, and I saw you reference this on Twitter. Nick Caley's being mentioned for possible offensive coordinator interviews. And it just makes the decision to look at if he's being thought of this way outside the building. First of all, somebody is telling him that. Like, somebody is giving Nick Caley, hey, you need to talk to Nick Caley. Somebody like Josh McDaniels and other guys in Vegas who have worked with Nick are saying, like, this guy's really smart. He's really good. You should talk to him. Which makes this Kraft show look even worse from the past year because they had the guy in-house. And for whatever reason, dicking around with titles and money and stuff like that, they just didn't promote him, which was just asinine. So do they want to? Do they think that they want to stay with how they've always done things, and that would limit the pool again? Are there candidates like a Cliff Kingsbury who could meld the two a little bit better? Here's what I think, Nick. I think the priority, first of all, they need to answer a couple questions. They need to answer how much are they convinced on Mac Jones? Is he the guy for next year? And you don't have to make a decision on him long term, but as far as next year, are you saying, all right, we really did Mac wrong this year and the rest of the offense, that was obvious. Let's give them the best shot this season. And what's the best shot for them? What's the best thing? What's the best thing for Mac Jones or that type of quarterback? To me, that's the old Patriots system. If you're not wedded to it, maybe you go in a different direction and say, we'll see if Mac can do this, but this is the direction we want to go. And then I think the other main thing, if I'm Belichick, is he has to find somebody, and these guys are rare. They're not easy to find. You have to find someone who can coach the quarterback. And that, because anything else in the NFL, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you have on defense or special teams or whatever. If you can't get the quarterback playing well, and that means you need to teach them the fundamentals, the reads, the minutia of playing quarterback. If you if you don't have a guy on staff that can do that, the rest doesn't really matter. So, answering those main questions will sort of lead you in a general direction. But as far as what I think they're going to do, who the hell knows? I mean, it's really up to Belichick, and he's got a bunch of questions he needs to answer first before he even gets into, who am I going to talk to for this?
Right. When we look at Bill O'Brien, because he's the name on everybody's list, right? That at the top. When we look at O'Brien, this idea of Gerard Mayo being the possible successor, would that impact O'Brien's thought process? If O'Brien's thinking, yeah, I'll go back to New England if I have a chance to take over the program eventually, would that have any impact? Or O'Brien would just more look at it like, nah, I'm getting back into the NFL. I'm going to be the offensive coordinator. And it doesn't really matter if it's New England or somewhere else. Getting back into the NFL gives me the inside track of getting a head coaching job again.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit, and I've heard other people bring this up. I think, I understand the question. And I do think, look, I even think before this press release came out, from what I heard about O'Brien, and I have not talked to him about this, just to let people know, that he wasn't exactly keen on the Patriots, what was going on. I mean, and maybe things have changed, because I think my guess is he's looking for clarity in terms of how much autonomy he's going to have. Can he run his offense? Can he do what he wants to do? That sort of thing. And, before this came out, maybe he was dubious about that. I don't know. But the last I heard before the press release was that he wasn't super excited about coming back here the way the Patriots were formed. But I think, look, if you're Bill O'Brien, if you feel better, if Bill says, like, look, I'm going to give you autonomy just like Josh had, blah, 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 things can change so rapidly. Like Mayo could be in the same position as, Josh McDaniels got off the plane in the Colts, and then he was interviewing for jobs and wanted to leave like within 2 years. That could be Mayo too. Mayo could, if Bill's going to be here for another 3 years, if somebody offers Gerard Mayo a head coaching job, whether it's this year or next year, he's going to take it, because especially for defensive coaches, those things don't grow on trees. So I think for O'Brien, he wouldn't really care, and he would also look at Josh's path where it's like, all right, fine, maybe I'm not getting a head coaching job here, but look at my resume, look what I did in Houston, and there were a lot of good things there that he did in Houston, Alabama, Penn State. If he does a good job, if he resurrects Mac Jones in this offense, that makes him even more attractive, and, who knows what happens from there.
What's this mean for Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as well? Because obviously if Mayo stays, you've got Steve. Steve will be involved somehow, whatever his role is and title is. You've got Mayo and Steve on the defensive side. You've already come out and said Patricia's not the guy as the OC. We're going to start interviewing people to replace him. Where does this leave those two gentlemen?
I think they'll always be here. I think they'll always have a job with Bill. There are people around the team that certainly have an opinion on that, on whether they should or, I'm going to leave that alone. But I think they're going to be here. I think they'll be reassigned. Could Matt Patricia? I think a lot of it will depend on the offensive coordinator. Like if they bring in some Shanahan type guy, maybe they want the guy who's going to teach more of their offensive line techniques. But if I had to guess right now, I think that Matt Patricia is in a supervisory role, would be considered for the offensive line coach. I do think he's a good positional coach. I think that he would do a fine job at just offensive line if he was given that. Him and Billy Yates together, I think, could figure it out. I think that Joe Judge will go to special teams. I think Acord may be, reassigned or assistant special teams coach. And if he doesn't like it, then go find something else. But I think that's where it leaves those guys.
Love it. Fine with it. If Patricia goes to the offensive line and focuses his energy there, I'm fine with it. If he goes upstairs with some consultant, role or whatever the hell we'd call it, fine with it. Get him away from offense, get him away from the play calling, at least. To me, this is a really positive step, and I don't want to go overboard. Let's see how this process plays out. But if you're telling me at the end of the day, you've got Mayo staying with a little bit more stroke and power within the organization, you've got Patricia away from the OC title and the play calling duties, and he's doing O-line or he's upstairs, and you've got Joe Judge going to special teams and getting rid of Acord or reassigning him, as you put it, fine with it. I think it again comes down to who they hire as OC or they promote Kaylee, whatever happens. And, the Jets were the team that was mentioned. I think Robert Saleh is a pretty smart guy. So if Robert Saleh has heard some solid things about Kaylee and he's going to talk to him about the OC gig, I do think that gives legitimacy to Nick Kaylee as a possibility here. But we'll see how it plays out. All I could say is, looking at it and how this offseason has begun within the first few days, some positive vibes. Let's see if they follow through.
I just on that, Nick, just real quick, I just want to say I agree. I mean, I think this is, if you were fearful that this season wasn't going to change Bill or the team at all, and they were just going to play out the string with Belichick, this says no. And this says that the Crafts are being vigilant, that they're saying, like, this hasn't been good enough. 3 years straight without 4 years straight without a playoff victory, 2 losing seasons in 3 years, booze raining down at Gillette. The Crafts hear you. They are on it, and they are just not going to – this is not playing out the string. They are going to be proactive about making sure that Belichick is his best version of himself going forward.
That's what the fans want, but it's not just only, I don't want to paint it as the Crafts giving in to the fans. I don't want to do that. Yeah. This is the Crafts, as I said, looking at the operation and saying, this hasn't gone well. And Robert Kraft is a very smart businessman. He understands the situation. And look, I don't think he's trying to meddle like Jerry Jones, but things are screwed up here with his franchise. And he's the dude that ultimately is in control and responsible for what happens. And so I do think it was time for him to step in and say, Bill, we've got to change how we're approaching this because it's just not working, man. Like, I appreciate you and I love what you've done, but it's time to change some of this shit. And so I appreciate the fact that RKK has done that. And I do think he's one of the best owners in sports. And I think, he's stepping up to make sure the operation is now going to move forward in the right manner and fashion.